I found out my dad wasn't proud of me by accident. Not during a fight. Not in some big emotional moment. Just a voicemail he never meant me to hear. I listened to it 4 times sitting in my car before I even realized I'd been holding my breath the whole time. My name's Ethan. I'm 34 years old. And for most of my life I thought I understood my place in my family. I thought I had accepted it. But that voicemail didn't just hurt. It rewrote everything. And the worst part? Deep down, I wasn't even surprised. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood outside Harrisburg. The kind of place where people waved at each other, kids rode bikes until sunset, and every house looked just stable enough to hide whatever was really going on inside. From the outside we were normal. Inside, not so much. My dad, Gerald, was an electrician. He worked long hours, came home exhausted and kept to himself. He wasn't a bad man. Just, not an emotional one. To him, being a father meant providing, not connecting. Unless it came to my younger brother, Sutton. Sutton was 3 years younger than me, but from the moment he was born something shifted. I couldn't explain it back then. But I felt it. Some kids grow up knowing they're loved. I grew up feeling like I had to earn it. And no matter how hard I tried, I was always a step behind him. One memory never left me. I was 12, playing in a school soccer game. It wasn't a big deal to anyone else, but to me it mattered. I had practiced for weeks hoping, just hoping, my dad would show up. He didn't. After the game I walked to the parking lot scanning every car, every face. Nothing. Just empty spaces, and other kids celebrating with their parents. When I got home he was sitting on the couch watching TV. "Game go okay?" he asked without even looking at me. "Yeah," I said quietly. "We won. I scored." "That's good, bud." That was it. 2 words. No eye contact. No questions. Nothing. Just, done. 3 months later Sutton had a little league baseball game. My dad took the day off work. Sat front row. Cheered like Sutton was playing in the World Series. Afterward they went out for ice cream. He even posted pictures online. I wasn't in a single one. That's when I started to understand something I wouldn't fully admit until years later. I wasn't the priority. I was the extra. My mom tried to make up for it. She really did. Her name's Jolene, and she was the kind of woman who held everything together quietly without ever asking for credit. Whenever I felt invisible she'd pull me aside and say, "You know your dad is proud of you, right? He just doesn't know how to show it." And I believed her. Because when you're a kid you'll believe anything that makes you feel loved. But high school didn't change anything. If anything it made it clearer. Sutton didn't work harder. He was just seen differently. When he turned 16 my dad bought him a used Mustang. Spent weeks fixing it up with him in the garage. Laughing, talking, bonding like something out of a movie. When I turned 16, I got my mom's old Corolla. The check engine light was already on. My dad tossed me the keys and said, "It runs." And that was it. That's what matters. I nodded. "Thank you," I said. Because I always said thank you. I wasn't a bad kid. I stayed out of trouble, got decent grades, worked part-time after school. I did everything I was supposed to do. I thought if I kept doing things right, eventually it would be enough. But enough kept moving. Graduation came. For Sutton there was a party, balloons, neighbors, speeches, pictures. For me, a handshake. "Good job, bud." Same 2 words. Different year. Same feeling. After high school I went to community college. Not because it was my dream, but because it was what I could afford. Dad didn't help with tuition. Said money was tight. 2 years later he co-signed a loan for Sutton to go to a private university. I found out at Thanksgiving. Sutton mentioned it casually while passing the mashed potatoes. "Oh yeah, I'm going to North Carolina next semester." I looked at my dad. He didn't look back. Mom changed the subject. And just like that, it was over. Another moment filed away. Another quiet confirmation. I didn't explode. That wasn't who I was. I kept everything inside, stored it, buried it, and kept moving. By my late 20s I had built a life on my own. I got into property management, worked my way up, learned everything I could. It wasn't flashy, but it was stable, reliable, and eventually, it became those things too. Reliable. That was my role. Not the favorite. Not the pride. Just dependable. Meanwhile, Sutton bounced from job to job. Tried things, quit when they got hard, moved back home more than once. And somehow, my dad still talked about him like he was full of potential. Then came the voicemail. A random Tuesday. I had a few missed calls from my dad, which was unusual. He never called like that. So I listened. At first it was muffled. Then his voice came through clearly. I'm telling you, you're the only son I'm actually proud of. Ethan, he's fine. But he's never had that spark. Not like you. My chest tightened. Then I heard Sutton's voice faint in the background. Come on, Dad. That's not fair. And my dad laughed. I'm not being unfair. I'm being honest. The message ended. I just sat there in my car, staring at nothing. Then I played it again. And again. And again. 4 times. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it made too much sense. That voicemail didn't change anything. Confirmed everything. That night I made a decision. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just quiet. I was done trying to earn something that was never going to be given. I didn't cut my family off. Didn't confront my dad. I stepped back. Stopped going out of my way. Stopped offering more than I was getting. Stopped chasing approval that was never mine. And something strange happened. At first it felt like loss. Like I had cut a cord I didn't even realize was holding me together. But slowly, it started to feel like freedom. I focused on my work. Started flipping houses with a friend. Worked harder than ever, but this time it wasn't for validation. Not for approval. Not to be seen. For me. Then I met Waverly. And everything changed, quietly but completely. She didn't know my past at first. Didn't know the years of trying, the constant need to prove myself. But somehow, she saw me. Not the version of me that was always performing. The real one. She noticed the small things. Encouraged me. She listened. And for the first time in my life I felt like I didn't have to earn my place. I was already enough. One night she looked at me and asked, Ethan, who are you trying to impress? I didn't answer. Because I already knew. The next few months were different. Better. But also harder. Because when you stop chasing approval, you start to realize how much of your identity was built around it. 6 months later my dad called again. This time it wasn't by accident. And this time, he needed something. $10,000. For the first time in my life I didn't answer right away. Not because I couldn't help, but because I realized I didn't have to. The silence on the phone stretched longer than anything we'd ever said to each other. Ethan, he asked. You still there? Yeah, I said. I'm here. But I wasn't the same person anymore. He asked me to come by that weekend. Said it'd be easier to explain in person. I agreed. Not because I had decided to help, but because I knew something was about to change. One way or another. That Saturday felt different from the moment I woke up. Waverly noticed it before I said a word. You're thinking too much, she said softly, pouring coffee. I always think too much. Not like this. He was right. What are you going to do? She asked. I stared into my cup for a moment. I don't know yet. She nodded, then said something that stayed with me all day. Just don't make a decision based on who you used to be. That hit hard. Because for most of my life, every decision I made around my family came from that version of me. The kid who wanted approval. The kid who always said yes. The kid who never questioned anything. I wasn't that kid anymore. At least, I was trying not to be. Before I left, I grabbed my keys, then stopped. There was something else I needed. I walked back to the bedroom, opened a drawer and picked up a small flash drive. The voicemail. I hadn't listened to it in months. I turned it over in my hand, then slipped it into my jacket pocket. I didn't know if I'd use it. But I knew I wasn't walking in unprepared. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than usual. Every street, every turn carried memories. Some good. Most complicated. When I pulled into the driveway, nothing had changed. Same house. Same porch. Same quiet feeling that something underneath it all wasn't right. My mom opened the door before I knocked. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're here, she said, pulling me into a hug that lingered a little too long. Yeah, I said softly. Your dad's in the den. Of course he was. I walked in slowly. There he sat in his recliner, a folder on the table beside him. He looked older. Not physically exactly. Just worn. Hey, he said. Hey. I sat across from him. For a few seconds neither of us spoke. Then he cleared his throat and opened the folder. He started explaining. The investment. The loss. The debt. the pressure that had been building for months. I listened. Really listened. Not as his son, but as someone who understood what he was saying. When he finished, he leaned back and looked at me. "I need help," he said. And for the first time in my life, I heard something in his voice I'd never heard before. Vulnerability. "How much?" I asked, even though I already knew. 10,000. There it was. Out in the open. I leaned back, letting the silence settle. He shifted in his seat. He wasn't used to silence like this. "Why me?" I asked. He blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, why are you asking me?" He frowned slightly. "You're doing well. You've always been responsible." I nodded. "Hey. But why not Sutton?" That's when everything shifted. His expression tightened. "Sutton's not in a position right now." "Right," I said quietly. "Of course." Another pause. Heavier this time. "You've got two sons," I continued. "One you're proud of, and one you're not." His head snapped up. "That's not." "Then why did I hear you say it?" The room went completely still. My dad blinked. "What are you talking about?" That's when I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the flash drive and placed it on the table between us. Slow, deliberate. "You left me a voicemail," I said quietly. 6 months ago." His face changed instantly. Confusion, then recognition, then something closer to fear. "I didn't mean." "I know you didn't mean to send it to me," I cut in. "That's not the point." I connected the file to my phone and pressed play. His voice filled the room. Clear. Unfiltered. Honest in a way he had never been with me. "You're the only son I'm actually proud of." I watched him as it played. Really watched him. For once he didn't interrupt. Didn't defend himself. Didn't look away. When it ended, the silence felt heavier than anything I'd ever known. At some point, my mom had appeared in the doorway. She stood there frozen. "Gerald," she whispered. But he didn't respond. He just stared at the table, at the space between us. "I didn't say anything that day," I told him quietly. "I didn't call you. I didn't confront you. I didn't even tell anyone." I took a breath. Not because it didn't hurt. He finally looked up. And for the first time in my life, I saw it. Regret. Real regret. "I just needed to understand something," I continued. "I needed to know if everything I felt growing up was real." My voice didn't shake anymore. "And now I know." My mom sat down slowly, tears already falling. "I've been telling him his whole life that you're proud of him," she said, her voice breaking. "I told him you just didn't know how to show it." She looked at my dad. "You made me a liar." That hit him harder than anything else. I could see it. He rubbed his face slowly. "I didn't mean it like that," he said. I nodded. "I believe you." And I did. In a strange way, I actually did. But that didn't change what it meant. He didn't argue. Didn't push back. Didn't try to explain it away. For the first time, he couldn't. "I'm not giving you the $10,000, I said calmly. The words hung in the air. Final. He flinched slightly. Not anger. Just impact. "But I'm not walking away either," I added. That got his attention. "I'll help you fix this," I said. "I'll sit down with you, go through everything, figure out a solution." I leaned forward slightly. "But it's not going to be the way it's always been." He nodded slowly. Almost automatically. "And one more thing," I said. He looked at me. "You need to have a real conversation with Sutton." He frowned. "About what?" "Not about me. Not about money. About him." I held his gaze. "He's not where he should be. And part of that is because you never made him have to be." That one landed. For the first time, my dad had no response. And that told me everything. We spent the next few hours going through his finances. Line by line. No shortcuts. No denial. It wasn't easy. But it was honest. For the first time in years. Maybe ever. By the end of it, we had a plan. Not perfect. But real. When I stood up to leave, my dad walked me to the door. Something he hadn't done since I was a kid. We stood there for a moment. "I don't know how to fix this," he said quietly. I looked at him. Really looked at him. "You don't fix it with words," I said. "You fix it by doing things differently." He nodded. "I'll try." And for the first time, I believed him. That was 4 months ago. Things aren't perfect now. But they're different. He calls me. Actually calls. Not just when he needs something. He listens. Really listens. The first time he told me he was proud of me without hesitation, felt strange. Unfamiliar. But it also felt real. Sudden got a job. Moved out. We talk more now. Like brothers. Not competitors. My mom seems lighter. Like she's not carrying everything alone anymore. Me. I don't listen to that voicemail anymore. I don't need to. It already did what it was supposed to do. It broke something. But it also freed me. Sometimes the thing that hurts you the most is the thing that finally shows you the truth. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But maybe that's exactly what you need.